podcast from the BBC World Service, bringing you extraordinary personal stories from around the globe. Search for Lives Less Ordinary wherever you get your BBC podcasts.
Hi, thanks for listening to the documentary podcast and this episode from the assignment team. First, a few introductory facts about Norway. It has just 5.5 million people. It is Europe's longest country, over 1,700 kilometres from northeast to southwest. It prides itself on its press freedom. In fact, it's usually top of the world rankings. And it's a founder member of NATO. And yet it has a 200-kilometre border with Russia. The Russian side is pretty militarised, less so on the Norwegian side. Non-Norwegian NATO troops aren't allowed close to the border area. That's to do with trying to keep tensions low. And the small town of Kirkenes on the Norwegian side is the closest to the border. I first went there 8 years ago, so why not go back to see what's changed since?
All right, welcome to Skafferhullet. As you can see, it's the Norwegian border posts and the Russian border posts.
The yellow one being Norway and the Russian being red and green.
Yeah, that's correct. And those border posts are all along the border. In between those is where the border between the countries lie.
We're 400 kilometres north of the Arctic Circle, in the land of the midnight sun, in the far northeast of Norway, a NATO member, and right next to its giant neighbour, Russia. A fascinating fact, at least I think so, is that we're actually further east than Istanbul. So does the border go from down here, down the river, and up?
That's correct.
To the right. Well, we're here surrounded by rocks and birch trees, and down below there's some water. Is that a fjord?
Yeah, that's correct.
There's a fjord, and there are these two border posts, so we're literally possibly about 30 metres from the border. And if I turn off to my left, about, I don't know, a couple of kilometres away,
Yeah.
we can just about see another yellow border post up these rocky hills or outcrops. And is that one of your border towers?
That's correct. One of our border towers, and we also have camera systems most of the border.
I should point out there are two soldiers here and a dog in the background, but there are two soldiers here, one male, one female, fully kitted up with all sorts of stuff, including walkie-talkie type things, but also your guns slung over your shoulders. Mm-hmm. Do introduce yourselves.
Lieutenant Stang, I'm the second in command of the company.
Yeah, I'm Merita.
And you're actually doing your military service?
Yeah, I've been here for 1 year and I'll stay for 6 months more.
So you always have to be out like this when you're near the border?
That's correct. We have a readiness, and we also take much pride in being rangers, being able to stay outdoors regardless of the terrain, regardless of the weather. Wintertime we get extreme cold, and we have presence along the border every hour of the day, and we have recon units going on foot and vehicles by the border every day.
Just to be clear, what I'm looking at straight through there, that's Russia.
That's correct.
And do you ever see your counterparts? Do you ever bump into them?
We don't talk with them, but we do observe the Russian border guard on the other side doing
I guess they're observing you too.
Probably.
You're doing national service, military service. How do you feel about doing this job?
I find it very interesting to be up here and experience the northern part of Norway and being at the border of Russia. I've learned very much up here, both about like surviving in the cold winter and surviving outside in general.
Did you ever have a moment where you worried about the Russians over there?
More before I came here. 6 months before I came here, the war broke out, and my parents, especially my mom, was a bit worried about that I was going up here in such times, but I feel very safe now that I actually am here and know a bit more about what we do.
You know, as a ranger unit up here, what is your top priority?
Well, I would say our primary...
It's starting to really rain now, we have to point out.
I would say the primary priority is to show presence along the border.
To show it's Norwegian.
Norwegian sovereignty, show presence, patrol, and show that the Norwegians are here. It's our border.
But also not to do anything to increase tension.
No, we seek to keep a normal degree of the cooperation.
This is a beautiful setting. There are pine and birch trees, and then these great rocky headlands and inlets all jutting out into the sea. There's this small town spread out below us with its boxed houses of reds and yellows and greys and whites. And in the distance I can see the church, which the town is named after, Kirkenes. And further to the right there are a couple of quite large fishing boats. And beyond them there's the water, the fjord, which is leading out to the Arctic Ocean. And even though this place is many, many thousands of miles away from Ukraine, it has been changed by the war. Kirkenes is just 9 miles, 14 kilometres from the official border crossing, which remains open. For decades, the people up here have had close ties with their Russian neighbours. Locals on either side of the border get visa-free travel, to shop, eat in restaurants and to visit each other. The phrase high north, low tension was coined to describe the region. I last came here in 2015, the year after Russia invaded Crimea and eastern Ukraine. The strains were beginning to show, but there was still a lot of interaction. So I wanted to see what impact last year's full-blown invasion of Ukraine and the retaliatory sanctions were having on Kirkenes and its local municipality, Sør-Varanger.
I'm Lena Bergeng. I'm the major in Sør-Varanger.
The mayor?
Municipality, yes. And right in front of us, it was here in this hotel they signed this agreement in the 90s with Russia to have a peace and people-to-people relationship, yes.
But now, in 2023, it's not looking so good.
No, we have had this very special contact with Russia for so many years, and now it's nothing on my level and so on. People are sad and they furious, angry. Yeah, the whole spectre of emotion.
If it was your choice here locally, would you carry on contact?
Not at these days. But when the war started, then I was very open to have this contact going on.
Yeah.
Because I think it's the only way to get this war get over. It's dialogue and contact. But these days I changed my mind. Yeah, I think it's a good thing from the Norwegian government to say we shall have any contact with the Russians. But it's sad.
There has definitely been an economic impact. Cross-border traffic is dramatically down. That means that shops in Kirkenes, which depended on Russian customers, who loved buying electronics, nappies and dried coffee, have suffered. And Norwegians no longer pop across for cheap vodka and petrol. Say the war ended soon, do you think it'll just change like that?
Not today. If you asked me a year ago, I maybe think that, but not today. I don't think so.
Too much has happened.
Yes, too much.
There are still some regular Russian visitors to Kirkenes, fishing trawlers. This town is one of 3 Norwegian ports still open to Russian fishermen.
If you see the sea, the haze,
Shimmering
horizon. Horizon, that is Russia.
The port's deputy director is Mong San Nguyen. This looks like quite a large modern boat, blue and white, with a Russian flag on the end. And there are various crew members wandering around on deck.
They have just delivered their fish and they're taking up some supplies and they're going out to fish.
And can you read that Cyrillic writing for me?
Yeah, Mirach, Murmansk.
Okay. And actually I can hear Russian voices in the distance.
And the supervisor is asking for working more.
Yes, work harder.
Yeah.
How long is this ship?
This ship is around 80 meters. Normally Russian vessels has much more crew than Norwegian vessels has. Normal crew like this ship, like 25 to 30, I think. If it has been a Norwegian fishing vessel, it has been like 6, 7.
And normally these crew members would be allowed to go on shore and wander around town.
Yeah.
But Norwegian police and customs now carry out extra checks on the Russian boats and crews. The fishermen themselves aren't allowed to wander around on shore as far as they used to. There are restrictions too on getting their ships repaired. That's a loss of business for Kirkenes's shipyard.
Every single penny which is coming to the port, there is at least 5 more pennies going to the shops. So it has a big impact for this small town.
So if the port suffers, the town suffers.
Yeah, 5 times more. These days we have a reduction of port calls from Russian vessels like 35%. So of course the town is suffering for that too.
This is a small town, population just 3,500. But given its location close to Russia, that it's a NATO member and is a gateway to the European Union, it's not surprising that security services on all sides might take a keen interest in what happens here. Still, I'm somewhat surprised at the size of the police headquarters overlooking the sea.
My name is Ellen Katrine Hatta. I've been chief of police here since 2011.
2011?
Yes.
So quite a while.
Quite a while.
And let's look at, you've got this map on the wall here. Which is your area? All of this area, Finnmark. So Kirkenes is in the far east, and you stretch all the way off to the west coast over there.
Yes.
Do you feel, as police chief here, any increased threat because of the war in Ukraine?
The Police Security Service and the Foreign Intelligence Service here in Norway has said the situation has been changing. So that means that we have to be ready for things that we haven't thought about earlier.
What kind of things?
Happenings, Russians coming over with purposes that are not so open, for instance.
And what activities do you think have been happening or could be happening?
Anything can happen. It's Russia.
Because I've read about strange drones flying around in this area. Yes?
Yes.
You're not telling me very much. So unexplained drone flights have happened.
For instance, yes.
But do you know those were Russians?
Some of them were Russians. 3 of them were flying drones in various areas in Finnmark. But they are not allowed to fly drones in Norway. You need to be a Norwegian citizen to fly drones. So we managed to seize them and we took the drones. And some of them went back to Russia before we managed to process the case.
Other visitors you do have are Russian fishermen, fishing vessels that have come here. Are there increased suspicions about what the fishing boats are doing?
I don't believe it is. I think they're doing the same as they used to. But what did happen last year was that Russia changed this marine doctrine.
The marine doctrine?
Yes, and that means that civilian boats also can be used in military purposes.
Even fishing boats could be used for military purposes?
Yes.
And do you have any evidence that that's happened?
No, we haven't seen anything on the Russian boats here.
Wasn't there a radio discovered, hidden on one of them?
Yes, it was an old military radio, I think.
Because there are also suspicions that put it bluntly, that some Russian fishing boats are spying or looking out for things which would not be what a normal fisherman does.
That's right.
Okay, is that as far as you're going to go?
Yes, absolutely.
It seems to me there's quite a lot you're not saying.
Of course, I can't say everything.
Okay. Because some people say, there have been questions about, I'm not saying the fishermen have done it, but there have been questions about undersea cables being threatened, including one to Svalbard that was cut somehow.
Just a whale, I think.
Just a whale. A very specialised whale.
Yes. But,
okay. She's smiling at me.
Yes, I'm smiling, but you don't know. It's very difficult to say that it was one boat or some boats that did that. But it's important for us to be aware and have readiness.
Barents Observer, third floor. I'm retracing my steps again, visiting someone I first met when I was last here 8 years ago.
Hello, Thomas. Most welcome. Cool. Do you want to
Thomas Nielsen is a man who knows a lot about the comings and goings on both sides of the border. He's the editor of the independent Barents Observer, an online newspaper which publishes in English and Russian.
We have thousands of readers in Russia. We were blocked. We were the first Nordic newspaper online to be blocked in 2019. They try to do their best, but they can't. We are on the Norwegian side of the border, and we have years of experience in getting around Russia's censorship wall.
And your Russian audience are the people, in fact, just the other side of the border. It's this northern part we're talking about.
When we started the Barents Observer, our main geographical focus area were northwest Russia, but we see today that we have readers in especially the border regions to Ukraine, where the war is going on, because a lot of the Russian soldiers and material that are taking part in the war in Ukraine are actually coming from the north. So the war has expanded our audience in many ways.
And in fact, the other side of the border in Russia, that's the Kola Peninsula.
Yes, the Kola Peninsula is one of the most militarized areas of Russia, and they have sent thousands of soldiers from the border region to the war in Ukraine. And nowadays also the strategic bombers carrying cruise missiles. They are taking off from here, flying south and launch attacks against civilian targets in Ukraine. And the Kola Peninsula is the core area of Russia's strategic nuclear weapons. They have the submarine, the ballistic missile submarines, only a few kilometers from the border to Norway.
And as someone who's lived here, for years, how do you feel about that change from the, high north, low tension to high north, quite high tension?
No, it's terrible to witness what is happening. In the Barents Observer has reported a lot about 30 years of cross-border cooperation. But now I think we can easily conclude that the Iron Curtain is back. And to be honest, things look quite dark for the time being.
One thing that Thomas and his colleagues did when the war in Ukraine broke out was to come to the rescue of some Russian journalists based in Russia. They got funding to take on 4 journalists for the next 3 years, including Elizaveta Vrekina, who'd been working for the BBC in Moscow.
After the war began, it was scary to stay. I wanted to be based somewhere outside of Russia, and not just somewhere, but in a safe democracy, place where it's actually secure to live and there are no danger of some massive anti-Russian sentiment. But it's Arctic, it's a small town, Kirkenes. I've never been based in a small place. I'm a big city person, which is totally fine for me. You just need to adjust to it.
My name is Georgi Chintimirov. I'm from Karelia.
Which is just the other side of the Finnish border.
Yes. I was the chief of Union of Journalists of Karelia, and we were the one organization who made the statement against censorship. And in fact, there were some signs that I'm in danger. I'm not sure, maybe I will not go to the jail, and you don't want to check it.
You don't want to find out that that's going to happen to you.
Yes, and there were some signs that it can happen, and there was an offer of work here to Barents Observer. The second reason was that Putin claimed mobilization.
You would have been young enough to be mobilized.
Yeah, I'm young enough, and my wife, she's a doctor, and no one knew, no one understood what's going on, and we made the decision to go here.
Do you feel safe as a journalist working here for the Barents Observer in Kirkenes?
No one in safety now, if we are talking about Russians abroad. Here, of course, I will not be detained because of my journalism, but of course we understand border is very close, and a lot of ships from Russia coming here. If they really want to kill me, something like that, they can do it. I hope that I'm not so big person.
So there's always a risk?
Anyway, it's a risk.
150 Ukrainian refugees now live in Kirkenes. There's also quite a large Russian consulate and around 400 Russian residents who've been here for years. Others like Evgeny Goman, a theatre director from Murmansk, is a more recent arrival. We meet him outside an art gallery, standing in front of 2 decommissioned wooden border posts.
They were used in an artistic project for many years. And then the war started. And then one day we come back after a weekend on Monday, and we see that this border post was overthrown, and you can see a piece of wood chipped off.
So the Russian border post, the green and red one.
Yes, and it was like laying on the side. And we're like, okay, so there are people in Kirkenes who hate this Russian symbol here. So what we did is we posted one yellow and blue poster, Stop War in Ukraine, on it, just to show that we are against this war. And we did it with staples. Next week, somebody tore it off. So we did it again, somebody tore it off, and they tore it to pieces and threw it all around. And we're like, okay, we glued it on there. Okay, and now if you look at it, you can see that we have many layers already. Somebody is always trying to peel it off. Then there are people, if you look here, there are people who wrote Slava Ukraini, glory to Ukraine, and crossed out this...
This Russian eagle here, the Russian coat of arms.
And then you can see a little... I don't know if it's a radio thing, but it's a big sign here.
Yes, a penis sign,
penis.
Let's say.
Yeah, yes. Anyway, what we found out throughout these months after the start of the war is that it's a perfect illustration of how art works. We see that this is how you can safely have people communicating to each other without actually, getting into a fight.
But it's also interesting. You have people tearing down or knocking down the Russian symbols, and then other people tearing off the Ukrainian symbols.
Exactly.
So it sort of exemplifies this conflict within this town.
Yeah, and the town stands, and people are nice to each other in many ways. They help each other, but they have different opinions. And I totally am against the war, and I hate Putin's Russia, and I think it's a horrible dictatorship. But when I meet people who are pro-war, I will never get into a physical fight with them. I will argue, but in a how to say that, in a democratic, nice,
civilized
in
way.
A civilized way. Thanks so much.
A few meters above my head, there's a statue of a Red Army soldier with his submachine gun across his chest. He's pointing northwards towards the Arctic, and he's here on top of this large plinth to mark the Red Army liberation of Kirkenes in 1944 as they pushed out the Nazi forces that were based here. And the Nazi forces were in fact trying to attack Murmansk there, which is a major port, Russian port, where the Allied Arctic convoys would be bringing supplies for the USSR. And at the foot of this plinth today is a fairly new-looking big wreath, and it's in the colours of today's Russian flag, red, blue and white, placed here by members of the Russian consulate just down the road to mark Victory Day, the Allied victory over the Nazis at the end of the Second World War.
I live in the amusing country, which is bumpy and it's also all flat. And in summer, the night is like the day, and in winter, the day is like the night. And it's a lot of space everywhere.
Sigrid Zetterhög is a music teacher. She's someone else I first met back in 2015.
The borders here, the border lines were made in 1826. So before that, there were like just one area and one people. There was a lot of trading between the area. And then the Second World War, where Kirkenes was freed in October in 44, free from the Nazis. So
by the Red Army?
By the Red Army. And the Red Army stayed here from October till June, I think, and really made the population here survive. I think people here never forgot that. And it has always been a lot of Russians here. You have probably seen every street signs, both in Norwegian and Russian, and in every shop there is somebody who can speak Russian. And I have a lot of pupils that are Russian mother, Norwegian father, or the opposite, or both Russians. They are our neighbors and friends, and we like them, and we trust them.
Sigrid also conducts a local choir which in past years has been very involved in cross-border musical activities.
They were working a lot together with the music school in Zapoljarny. We were learning them Norwegian songs, they were learning Russian songs. We had a Christmas concert together, one concert here, one concert there. They were coming here for our National Day, going in the parade with us, having concert together in the church. We were even meeting at the border when we were singing together.
And now?
It's just really sad because we can't go there. So the cooperation is just like dead. And I wrote email to my friends on the music school in Zapolyarny, but the internet there is closed, so I guess the mail never arrived. So we hear nothing and know nothing, and it's very sad. And we have heard actually a lot of the young soldiers on the Russian side never came home. So maybe the young kids that I knew from the music school choir, they are already buried somewhere in Ukraine. It's horrible. But we don't know.
Years of work on cross-border cooperation, even good relations between Russians and Norwegians, have been undone very quickly, or at least frozen. Let's not forget too, this is the Arctic region we're talking about, where things like fish stocks, mineral deposits, new trade routes, and most important, global warming, all need to be discussed and worked out across borders. The war in Ukraine has only made this place even more strategically important. But it's been difficult to keep people here, says Mayor Lena Begeng.
About 100 to 200 every year leave this community.
That's a significant number for a small community.
Yes, absolutely. And many in my age and younger. When they are finished on high school, they are going further to the university and so on. They move out to get their education.
Because there's no university here.
Yes, and they don't come back. Yeah, that's the biggest issue here.
Why is it important to have people here?
Because of that's going on in Russia and Ukraine right now. You have to have people living here to get the security of the country.
Because, I mean, it's a difficult place to live, especially in winter, I believe.
Yeah, you get used to it. Yes.
The dark.
Yeah, but you get used to it. And here we actually have winter. It's the best place in Norway to live. And we have midnight sun and we have everything here. I think it's going well with us, but it's going to take some time to build it up. We have hope and we have to have hope.
After years of friendship, for many in this town, the idea that relations with their Russian neighbour will remain strained for long is almost unthinkable. The gloom will clear, they hope, and Russia will again be part of their future. Say the war does end in Ukraine.
Yeah.
Do you think these relationships, these cross-cultural relations, can pick up immediately and get back to normal, just like that?
Yes, I believe so. I have a strong belief.
There seems to be some doubt in your answer there.
Well, of course it will take some time, but my Russian friends are still my Russian friends. And I know that all of them long for the peace we had and the cooperation to people to come back. I wouldn't hesitate to go back immediately with my choir and meet my friends and make a concert, and if it was possible for us to go.
That's Assignment from the BBC World Service. I'm John Murphy, and the producer was Alex Last. The programme was mixed by Graham Puddifoot, our production coordinator was Gemma Ashman, and the series editor is Penny Murphy.